Russia-Ukraine, Zelenskyy and Putin in Times 100 Most Influential People of 2022. As the Russia-Ukraine war entered day 87, invading troops escalated their attacks on east and southern Ukrainian cities. Meanwhile, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy extended martial law for 3 months to August 22. Poland's President Andrzej Duda became the first foreign leader to address Ukraine's parliament in person since the war began on February 24. Russians sentenced to life in Ukraine's first war crimes trial. A Russian soldier who pleaded guilty to killing a civilian was sentenced by a Ukrainian court Monday to life in prison, the maximum, amid signs the Kremlin may hold trials of its own, particularly of the captured fighters who held out at Mari. Meanwhile, in a rare public expression of opposition to the war from the ranks of the Russian elite, a veteran Kremlin diplomat resigned and sent a scathing letter to foreign colleagues in which he said of the invasion, "Never have I been so ashamed of my country as on February 24 of this year." Starbucks leaving Russian market, shutting 130 stores. Starbucks is pulling out of the Russian market. In a memo to employees Monday, the Seattle coffee giant said it decided to close its 130 stores and no longer have a brand presence in Russia. Starbucks said it will continue to pay its nearly 2,000 Russian employees for 6 months and help them transition to new jobs. Starbucks' move follows McDonald's exit from the Russian market last week. Ukraine, Russia is escalating Donbas assault. A Ukrainian official says Russian forces are stepping up their bombardment of the Donbas area. Pavlo Kirilenko told AP on Monday in Kramatorsk that heavy fighting was continuing near the region of Luhansk and that the front line was under continuous shelling. Kramatorsk and neighboring Slavyansk are the largest cities in the parts of the Donetsk region not held by Russian forces currently. Kirilenko told the Associated Press in Kramatorsk that the situation is difficult. The front line is under shelling at all times. The vast majority of the population has already been evacuated, he said. Of more than 1.6 million people who lived in the region before the February 24 Russian invasion, there are not more than 320,000 people. Russia continues to bombard Ukraine's front line with tactical missiles, says Ukraine's MOD. Ukraine's Defense Ministry spokesman Oleksandr Motuzyan on Monday said Russia continues to bombard Ukraine's front line with tactical missiles and other weaponry. Motuzyan said Russia is trying to surround joint forces and establish complete control over the Donetsk, Luhansk, and Kherson regions. Motuzyan said Russia continues to strike Ukraine with Caliber C-based missiles. He said Ukrainian forces have repulsed 11 enemy attacks over the past day in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions and destroyed several units of Russia's military fleet. Russia-Ukraine war. Putin claims Moscow's economy withstanding global sanctions blow. Amid the ongoing war in Eastern Europe, Russian President Vladimir Putin claimed that the country's economy is withstanding the blow of global sanctions despite all the challenges. He made this statement while holding a meeting with his Belarusian counterpart Alexander Lukashenko in the Black Sea resort of Sochi on Monday, May 23. The Russian economy withstands the blow of the sanctions, it withstands it very worthily. All the main macroeconomic indicators speak of this, Putin stated, as per the Associated Press, AP. Zelenskyy in Times 100 Most Influential People of 2022. American news magazine Time has released the list of the 100 most influential people in 2022 on Monday. In the list, both Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy and his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, secured space. Zelenskyy was selected for the leaders category. Apart from Zelenskyy, Ukraine Commander-in-Chief Valery Zaluzhny was also selected for the leaders category, while Ukrainian media Ukrainska Pravda's chief editor Sevgil Museva is among. Though including both Russian and Ukrainian leaders seems controversial, Times editor-in-chief said, "When our team gets together to choose the Time 100, we have one barometer, influence. Who shaped the year? Who stood up? Who stood out? Influence, of course, maybe for good or for ill, a dichotomy never more visible than in this year's Time 100, which includes both Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelenskyy. UK PM writes heartfelt letter to Ukrainian children, says UK will never forget you. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson penned down a heartfelt letter to the children of Ukraine, saying the whole world will remember the courage they have shown since the onset of the brutal war. Applauding the bravery of every Ukrainian child, Johnson said, "We in the UK will never forget you. In any other year, children like you would be spilling out of your homes and schools to play with your friends, to chase a football, to simply enjoy what is supposed to be a uniquely carefree time in your lives," he writes. Russia may offer prisoner exchange, says officials. Days after Russia released a video of the surrender of Ukrainian soldiers from Mariupol, Russian officials said it is likely that President Vladimir Putin may offer an exchange with Moscow defense. However, officials did not provide any details on the possible plan. Earlier today, Putin's spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, refuted any possibility of exchange of Mariupol defenders with pro-Kremlin lawmaker Viktor Medvedchuk. He said Medvedchuk is a civilian. Russia intensifies assault on key city Severodonetsk as it seeks to seize Donbass. As Moscow attempt to take the Donbass area, Russian forces in eastern Ukraine are stepping up attacks on a key city. Moscow's soldiers have been shelling Severodonetsk, the largest city under Ukrainian control in Luhansk province, with artillery and missiles. Russian military tried to invade the city from 4 directions on May 22, according to local officials. The announcement comes as the United Nations announced that the global number of displaced people has surpassed 100 million for the first time. According to UN officials, Russia's invasion of Ukraine has contributed to the bleak milestone. Since the war began on February 24, it is estimated that over 14 million people have fled their homes. Filippo Grandi, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, said the revelation should serve as a wake-up call to international leaders. Russia kills 4,600 civilians in Ukraine since invasion, says Prosecutor General. Ukraine's Prosecutor General Irina Venediktova, on Monday, accused Russian forces of killing at least 4,600 civilians since Russia's unprovoked action started against Ukraine. The figure also includes at least 232 children who were killed in the brutal attack. NATO expansion will flare regional tensions, in no way will stabilize region, CSTO chief. The eastward expansion of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, will flare regional tensions and in no way will stabilize or ensure the security of its member nations, Stanislav Zaz, Secretary General of the Collective Security Treaty Organization, CSTO, a post-Soviet Russia-led security bloc, said in an interview with the Belarus One television channel. Zaz said that the prospects of Finland and Sweden's NATO membership would escalate the hostilities between Russia and the NATO allied member nations. Borrell is not a proponent of diplomatic methods of settling disputes, says Russia. Reacting to the recent statement of European Union, EU, High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy Josep Borrell regarding strengthening the bloc's security amid Russia's invasion, Moscow on Monday said, he is not a proponent of diplomatic methods of settling. While speaking to the reporters on Monday, Russian presidential spokesman Dmitry Peskov said the implementation of Borrell's idea of creating a European army will not improve security. On the contrary, to the office he takes, he constantly and publicly demonstrates his commitment to acting from the position of strength. TASS news agency quoted Peskov as saying, Kremlin says Poland's premature gas contract termination requires thorough analysis. Hours after Poland prematurely terminated the agreement on Russian gas supplies, Kremlin said the action requires attention and thorough analysis, Interfax reported on Monday. While addressing a press conference on May 23, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said, "Of course, as for the transit side of this case, breaking the agreement with Russia, I think Gazprom is ready to give more detailed explanations if necessary. But this is a topic that, of course, deserves attention, with the understanding that there are also alternative routes for gas supplies, which, by the way, are operating under pressure at the moment. Poland prematurely terminates agreement on Russian gas supplies. Amid the ongoing war, the Polish government has prematurely terminated the agreement on Russian gas supply. According to multiple media reports, the decision was taken on May 13. The report said that the Polish government also refused to pay for energy in rubles. They ruined everything, fleeing the devastation in Ukraine. Houses on fire. Artillery blasting through thick apartment walls. People hiding in basements without electricity, water or gas as their towns are pulverized above them. In shock, sometimes fighting off tears, civilians fleeing areas near the Eastern Front in the war in Ukraine described scenes of devastation as their towns and villages came under sustained attack from Russian force. More than 270 people boarded an evacuation train Sunday heading west to safer areas of Ukraine from the town of Pokrovsk, most brought there on buses from areas near the fighting. Ashes, ruins. The northern parts, the southern parts, all are ruined, said 83-year-old Lidicha, who fled the hard-hit town of Lyman, near the front line in the eastern Luhansk province. Literally everything is on fire, houses, buildings, everything. She and others who fled Lyman said the town was coming under sustained attack and much of it had been reduced to rubble. Those still left there were hiding in shelters. Barely anyone ventures outside as it's too dangerous to walk in the streets. They ruined everything, said Olya Medvedeva, sitting opposite Cha on the train. The 5-story building where we were living, everything flew away, the windows, the doors. Everyone now lives in basements, she said, as projectiles fly overhead. Petro Demidov, sitting opposite her on the train, said they hid in a supermarket while they waited for the bus to pick them up and take them to above them. The ceiling shook from the force of the explosions outside. We got away under heavy fire, he said. Ukraine's parliament bans symbols used by Russian forces, to be allowed only in museums. The Ukrainian parliament, Verkhovna Rada, on Sunday, May 22, banned the use of symbols used by Russian armed forces for the military offensive against Ukraine. However, the lawmakers have agreed to the proposal of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy to allow the use of symbols in museums for educational purposes. The decision was announced by Verkhovna Rada in a Facebook post. Zelenskyy urges maximum sanctions on Russia in Davos talk. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy called for maximum sanctions against Russia during a virtual speech on the first day of the World Economic Forum gathering of corporate executives, government officials and other VIPs in Davos. He said sanctions need to go further to stop Russia's aggression, including an oil embargo, blocking all of its banks and cutting off trade with Russia completely. Zelenskyy signs law to confiscate property of war supporters. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelenskyy has signed a law on confiscating the property of those who are supporting the ongoing conflict. According to Zelenskyy, the main intention of the law is to finance the Ukrainian budget. Russian soldier sentenced to life at Kyiv war crimes trial. A Ukrainian court sentenced a 21-year-old Russian soldier to life in prison on Monday for killing a Ukrainian civilian, in the first war crimes trial held since Russia's invasion. Sergeant Vadim Shishimarin was accused of shooting a Ukrainian civilian in the head in a village in the northeastern Sumy region in the early days of the war. He pleaded guilty and testified that he shot the man after being ordered to do so. He told the court that an officer insisted that the Ukrainian man, who was speaking on his cell phone, could pinpoint their location to the Ukrainian forces. Ukraine firmly rejects any ceasefire deal that involves surrendering territory to Russia. As Russia escalated its onslaught in the eastern Donbas region, the Ukrainian authorities stated that the country will not accept any ceasefire settlement that involves ceding territory to Moscow. The war must end with the complete restoration of Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty. That is our victory. our common victory with the civilized world. After all, today Ukraine is defending not itself only. Today Ukraine is the Thermopolis of Europe, Andriy Yermak, Ukraine's presidential chief of staff, stated in a Twitter post.